If you were to ask me about 10 months ago, who are your favorite, most productive employees, I would have given you like a list of 6 names. It's Grok, Gamma, the things we can accomplish using AI, it's like exponential. Throughout my career, I was like the data guy in the back. Now it's, you need CDOs and CDAIOs to drive the top line growth. Everyone's going to be looking at that and saying, hey, like, let's speed up our adoption of AI. But at the same time, you've got all the legacy challenges, especially big enterprises, that you got to deal with. I'm concerned about the social unrest and the social implications. Today we see a K-shaped economy evolving, and I don't think our politicians have that figured out.
All right, everyone. I'm really excited today and welcome to the AI Data Fabric show, our podcast. I'm Prat Moghe, and today I'd like to welcome Andrew Clyne. Andrew, welcome to the show. Andrew's again serial CDO, CDAO, CDAIO, whichever you want to call it, thought leader and a leader in our industry, former CDO at Comcast, Expedia, Visa, and a number of places that I'm probably forgetting, and starting to think about his next adventure. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to see you again, Pratt.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, we've known each other for many years, and it's great that we are reconnecting. So, Andrew, there's a lot to talk about, particularly given AI, data, what's going on with enterprises. You've been with sort of the biggest companies, seeing a number of very interesting, innovative companies grow at scale. You've done startups, you've done medium companies, large companies. You kind of sort of seen it all. So I was very excited to talk to you and sort of learn about your journey and share that and showcase that with our community. So, what really struck me, Andrew, about you is that you're one of those rare folks in the enterprise, as an enterprise executive, who also started with humble beginnings, and at the same time you served in our in the Air Force. So firstly, thank you for your service, and sort of take me back through your early beginnings. What was childhood like? What were some of your early influences? And then, what got you into the Air Force?
Yeah, so thank you. So I'm one of 7 kids, second oldest, born in New York City, raised in Michigan, and realized early on my parents weren't going to be able to put us all through college. And so early on I set a goal to either get a scholarship or go to the Air Force Academy. I always loved flying. I had a passion. I still fly today. And so I set a goal to get to the Air Force Academy at a young age, probably in middle school, I think. And, by the grace of God, I made it. I got in, and it felt like, hit my first milestone, and then I graduated in 1987. In fact, one of my roommates was Eric Bowe, a good friend of mine. He flew 2 space shuttle missions.
Sure.
Yeah, so you talk about my accomplishments, but compared to some of those guys that I graduated with, I got a long way to go. So, yeah. So yeah, it's.
By the way, what was your first plane? What did you get your?
Oh, so I got my first plane that I flew was a Mooney Cadet. As a 16-year-old, I got my pilot's license. I'd work at a furniture store after school and helped deliver furniture, and the guy owned another store across the street, Montgomery Ward. So I would also deliver washing machines and things like that. And so the money I saved up, I'd go take flying lessons on the weekends, and I got my pilot's license early on. In fact, I got my pilot's license student license before I got my driver's license. So
That is crazy. And where was this? Was this St. Louis? Where was your
Michigan, Elma, Michigan. Yeah.
Michigan?
So
Uh, that's awesome. And what did your dad do?
my dad was an attorney,
Mm.
so he practiced law, and he was also did real estate. He owned some properties in Michigan as well. Yeah.
And that probably influenced you later because I know that post Air Force you got a law degree too. You have a JD too, right?
Yeah, it wasn't really my dad that it had anything to do with that. Although I got to see how I got to watch him in court a few times.
Oh,
He actually put me on the stand once because he tried to get me out of a driving ticket. But so I learned a bit about the law early on. But I ended up after the Air Force Academy, my eyes went bad, so I couldn't fly anymore. I still fly now with corrective lenses, but back then, the Air Force wouldn't let you fly with LASIKs, or you had to have perfect vision back then. So anyway, I ended up being a computer systems officer in the Air Force, and in order to go up the ranks, you had to get a secondary degree at the time. And so I looked around and I found myself negotiating contracts on behalf of the Air Force through the GSA and dealing with interagency money and all. And I was like, okay, I got to learn contract law if I'm going to
have the contract.
And it's the only way I could get a class in to learn about contract law was to enroll in law school. And at the time, so okay, I'm going to do that and kill two birds with one stone. And one thing led to another, and I'm one of those people that once I start something, I have to finish it. So I just kept going to night school and ended up graduating from St. Louis University Law School in '95.
That is so cool. So one of the things I find fascinating, and probably not too many people know this, but how did you get to data? There's a very interesting story in your thing when you're doing the comms, you're looking at the comms and control problem. Talk to us about that, which is you're inside, and then now you're looking at the whole command and control infrastructure. How does data figure into that, and how did you get onto that track?
Yeah, so I kind of stumbled into it. Out of computer systems school, I ended up getting assigned to Scott Air Force Base. At the time, that was a military airlift command. Think of the big C-17s and C-5s that are flying all the cargo from the U.S. Now into the theater. And the mission at the time was to build the first command and control system using modern technology back then, so that you could walk in and see on the screen all the airlift across and all the logistics information, all the passenger movement, cargo movement, all the war plans, all the think of all the different systems coming together in one command and control system. And I was assigned to the unit to do the enterprise architecture for that and define the concept of operations and the requirements for it, and then get into the help with the design. And very early on, back then there was IDEF 1 and IDEF 0 modeling as standards for the military. I'm not sure what they are now, but
yeah. And
I pulled in.
Most people don't know what those acronyms are. Do you remember what?
I don't remember. I just remember one's for process modeling, and the other's for data modeling, logical data modeling. So to define, because I think what they were trying to do is ensure people were, you're building custom systems, and back then everything was custom.
That's right.
We had Oracle database and Sybase, but beyond that, it was custom code. And so they wanted to make sure we were building the best practices, and I think that's where those standards came from. But very quickly I realized that the data elements in the other systems didn't match up. So we also had to integrate with systems in the Navy and the Army, because we had to get the the manifest information and the war planning synced up. And but the data elements in those databases didn't match. So very quickly I realized that the complexity of the problem was inconsistent data, and so I got pulled. My proposal was, let's build a data dictionary and data standards, and so that I got sucked into that whole problem, and then next thing you know, I wrote a paper about challenges we would have if we ever went to a theater war, because the theater command and control systems were different than the strategic ones back then. I don't know what they are now, but and they would be different data elements and different challenges. So that's kind of how the career started.
That is really cool. You were sharing with me that like some of these objects in like Navy versus Air Force, they actually have like completely different 4 digits versus 5 digits, like the tail numbers and those kind of things. So that's like it's a real problem. And what's fascinating to me is that you took that on very early, and most people won't recognize or appreciate what you're talking about, but that's very much now in action in these theater wars. So what took you to, from there you made a jump to MasterCard. It seems like a very different, how did that happen? And I know at MasterCard you did super innovative things very early on across like very different sets of problems. Like it'd be great to share that.
So I ended up, because I wanted to stay in St. Louis at the time, because I was still doing my law degree at night. To pay for law school, I worked during the day, and as a consultant, and I got placed at MasterCard initially to build their first data model for their first data warehouse. And one thing led to another, and I ended up getting hired there, and which kept me in town. But my career kind of took off at MasterCard. I ended up running the project after a while, and then helped deliver the first, at the time, industry data warehouse. So I think banks could log in over a secure connection. Back then we called it a wide area network. But early days we had encryption through the network, so all the banks could log into the central data warehouse and analyze their portfolios. And so we launched products, and we kept calling them the advisor products. So the first one was Market Advisor, so they could analyze how they were marketing to all the cardholders and cause and effect, and see if their volumes increased. The other one was Portfolio Advisor, so they could compare different co-branded programs. So think American Airlines versus card versus AARP card, different. And then another one was Authorization Advisor, so how quickly the cards get authorized at the point of sale. So all these analytics products would be then sold out to the banks, and we ended up creating a whole consulting program at MasterCard called the Advisors back then, and it's a big deal now. Also, we delivered John Meister, who went on to be the CIO at Panera Bread, worked for me. Great guy. He helped build the first reward system with me back then. So you swipe your card and you get points, and just support the launch of the World Card.
Wow.
So a lot of cool projects that were, this is back in the 90s when the dot-com boom was taking off, and we were losing good talent to startup companies, and but we were able to innovate fast, and it was like back then it was like a fun startup culture, and we just kept getting more and more projects like that.
And I'm guessing, Andrew, that was like probably the first time people were calling it like a data group, or did you have a label called data?
Yeah, so we had to come up with an identity, and that's where I learned to kind of build a team of my own for MasterCard at the time, and we called it MasterCard Ideas, something that had a that attracted the business back to us to, hey, we were innovative and delivering stuff. And IDEAS was an acronym. It was Information Delivery Architecture Services.
Interesting.
And we threw the E on just because it sounded cool.
Made a word. Yeah, and it's pretty innovative. That's very cool. And then what followed after that? I know that then you.
So then I went on my walkabout. I spent about 9 years at MasterCard and felt like, okay, we accomplished a bunch of things, and I felt like, okay, my boss wasn't going anywhere. Where do I go next in my career? And a recruiter convinced me, hey, you should go be a CIO at a bank. So I thought that was a good idea at the time. I ended up leaving.
You did like regions and like you did a couple of spots.
Yeah.
And then I also remember you had a really innovative journey also at Visa, right? You came back to Visa when Visa was in the growth mode.
Yeah.
This is probably post IPO, right? And
no, actually pre-IPO.
Yeah.
Ended up, another recruiter called and at the time, and I missed the MasterCard IPO because I took this other opportunity, and coincidentally, out of the blue, this guy called and said, hey, we'd like you to come and help us and run the data team and help get ready for the IPO. And it was great. I worked for John McElwain, one of the best bosses I ever had, and Mike Dreyer at the time. And we helped. Back then, Visa pre-IPO was 6 different companies worldwide. And the good news is the first thing they did to get ready for the IPO is they collapsed down all the structure, the business side of it, into one central structure under the Foster City and San Francisco leadership. But the underlying data and underlying technology was still resembling the old structure. That it doesn't just change overnight. So our mission was to come in and collapse down all the data into one place, still honoring all. Back then we had to deal with all the early versions of sovereignty of data and privacy laws that were there. Graham Leach Bliley, I think, was passed somewhere around there. And so early days in terms of data governance, but stood up data governance function back then, working with the architecture team. And then also delivered a number of projects similar to what I did at MasterCard, except with more modern technology.
yeah, big data was happening. I remember you were actually one of the early customers for Cloudera, right?
That's right, yeah.
And a big influence on several of the early founders. So appreciate that very much. And you tell us the story. Talk about the story for Impala. Like I know you were one of the guys who.
Well, so at the time, we had this analytics team in the business. There were other analytics teams, but they were using SAS, if you remember SAS, Dr.
Yes.
Goodnight's product. And trying to get them weaned off SAS is like stealing a rattle from a baby. It's like, so I tried to get them to use Cloudera. It's like, no, it's going to be better for it. It's going to be total, and just trying that change management. And what I realized was we really needed another layer on top of Cloudera to make the what they were used to in terms of SQL access and those interaction patterns. And so I kept meeting with Cloudera and say, hey, we need this extra layer and these tables that sit on top. So they came out with Impala, and it was great. Once they came out with Impala, we were an early adopter of that.
Yeah.
And that helped, by the way. It helped us migrate off of SAS and
That's right.
save a lot of money.
So again, like in your journey, looks like you built teams, you scale things, you dealt with change management, you worked with business. There's a lot of these. In general, the theme when I chat with chief data officers is it's a hard job because firstly, not everybody knows what the job is. You got to partner with business, and at the same time, you got to be technical. So Andrew, when you think about your growth along the way from MasterCard to Visa, and then later on you were at Comcast, and between that you did a startup. Like, what anything you can share, like in terms of principles or what's kind of the secret? Because you're one of those people who've always lasted, not just lasted. You've actually, you know, you've thrived in these scenarios. You've consistently delivered. Um, um, so I mean, congrats on that. And the question is like, what's the secret to that, and what can others learn from?
Well, I don't know if I have all the answers for sure. I'm still learning, right? But I can reflect back and point out some nuggets. I used to be. There's a picture here somewhere. I used to be 6'4" and I had like full hair. I was much better looking than you. So
You were playing basketball and like,
so
you,
over the years, I've certainly got a bunch of scars and lost a lot of hair. Just through the challenges. But all kidding aside, if I look back, I always treated my job as two things. I treat it as a mission. Like, once you've been to I was in Desert Storm and helped deliver over there very quickly with a team of developers to solve a problem successfully. And once you've been there and you got Scud missiles coming in and you're working 12-hour shifts, and you realize that's really delivering for stakeholders and delivering for the business. That's the mindset I brought to every initiative, every project, and failure is not an option, right? That's and so I brought that with me. I think that intensity, for the most part, wherever I went, and then I also treated it.
is it easy for teams to work with you, or are you?
So, so this is the second part of the story. I always treated each job that I was at as sort of college. Like I had more to learn at the same time, and learn how to be a better leader. Learn how to, I always kind of worked at like, okay, how do I get better at kind of leading people? And I don't think I ever figured that out, by the way. I'm still figuring that out, even with my own family or friends that I deal with. But yeah, I've had first of all, my biggest enjoyment and joy in what I've done in the past is not all the accomplishments. It's really seeing my employees succeed and achieve their full potential and get to the next level. And there's lots of stories in my career, whether it be TJ Jane that started as a database administrator for me at MasterCard, and years later went on at Expedia with me, and then later at Visa, and now he runs a whole division of development at Visa, very successful. John Meister we talked about, that's kind of a fun one. He did very well. But so my admins that went on to start as admin assistants and then later became directors, senior directors in HR, or now one actually runs a company. So those are the things that are most enjoyable. But I guess my employees would say I'm really hard to work for. I'm very, very demanding, and others would realize that on one hand I'm very demanding, but on the other hand I reward well. But I'm out for their best interest, and I'm hard on them, not just for the mission, but I see their potential, and I'm trying to get them to the next level. And I don't think I always did that well. In fact, I have some employees that good friends. Well, I'm friends with all these folks, by the way. So, but one of them joked and said, "Andrew, you're one of the best bosses I've ever had." And I got all excited. I was like, "Oh, thank you. That's great." And he goes, "Yeah, I've been so successful because of you. I've applied. I've learned everything what not to do from you." Of course, I couldn't punch him because it was over the phone. So next time I see him, I'm going to hit him in the arm.
Yeah.
But,
You also, like, I think the other thing that struck me about our conversation is that you're quite self-aware, and particularly you were talking about, I think, was it Rick at Comcast where you were talking about how you learned from different bosses. Can you
Yeah.
share some of that? Because that's also very interesting. Um, you sort of take away different things from different people.
Yeah.
Empathy, I think, was the thing that you brought up, right?
Yeah, I mean, if I had to do it over again, I would have picked Rick as my first boss, not my last boss,
Mm.
because of all the bosses I've had great bosses. Each one I've learned different things. By the way,
Yeah.
very different things along the way, which is kind of cool.
This is Rick Rioboli, right?
Yeah, Rick Rioboli is my boss, most recent boss. I spent about 7 years working for him at Comcast, and quite frankly, I stayed there every year. I kind of re-upped in my mind, and with him, it was like, hey, because I felt like I had more to learn, um, and what I learned from him is how to care for people, how to love people. In the Bible it says, Jesus says, everything, all the rules and everything come down to two things. Love God with your whole heart, soul, and mind. And he said the second commandment's like it, love your neighbor as yourself. And Rick, I learned from Rick, like in the corporate world, what does that really look like? That second commandment. It's like, holy cow. I never got it right, by the way, myself, but that part of emotional intelligence and what does it really take, to lead, with empathy and get people to really follow you. That's what I learned from Rick, and I think I improved over the years working for him. But it's like I think he's a natural at it.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so, what's when you now, like, again, you've been through so many interesting technology disruptions, Andrew, over your career. When you think about, like, whether it was early days of data, then it was um, SaaS was, big data was happening. There was SaaS and cloud. Um, and now it's AI, as you kind of over the last few years been looking at this, and particularly as you're thinking about the scale of a large enterprise, its legacy business, modernizing business. What is your take? What does the AI in this enterprise world mean for a CDO, somebody in that role? How do you see that as a challenge and an opportunity?
Yeah, when I think about AI, I just kind of look at just the last year. If you were to ask me about 10 months ago, who are your favorite, most productive employees, I would have given you like a list of 6 names.
Mm.
Right? Like boom, boom, boom. Like you can go, like you get, like these are the people. Now, obviously, I don't have any employees now, but you ask me now who my favorite employees are because I'm doing a lot of my own stuff.
Yeah.
It's Grok, Gamma, and Base 44. It's like, you can go down. And now the new one's going to be OpenClaw probably. But so I mean, the world has changed so fast, and the things we can accomplish using AI is just it's like exponential, and it's very hard to predict. But I think the challenges are going to be for enterprises. How do you adopt AI at the pace of AI? Because the demand of the shareholders and the demand, in the boardroom is going to be, hey, look at what the other guys are doing. You just saw, Dorsey laid off half his staff, and you can argue about, well, there was some bloat there anyway. Who knows? But everyone's going to be looking at that and saying, hey, like, let's speed up our adoption of AI. But at the same time, you've got all the legacy challenges, especially big enterprises, that you got to deal with. And so that's going to be very difficult for CDOs and CDAIOs to manage that legacy data challenge, which is still there in a lot of cases, and at the same time adopt the latest shiny object across so many stakeholders in the business at the pace of AI. And I saw that this happen a bit in the dot-com boom, but it's like dot-com times 1,000 right now.
Yeah, yeah.
It's exciting though, because there's a lot of new opportunities for companies to reinvent themselves and manage that transformation of AI to a whole new facelift for their business, really, if they can exploit that.
But I think the point you were also making is that there's a huge opportunity for CDOs right now.
Oh,
Right?
big time. Yeah.
The role is suddenly, it's not a back-end role anymore. It's a front-end
It's funny, I'm leaving the profession at a time when, all throughout my career, I was like the data guy in the back, right? And it's like, oh yeah, we need one of those. And, and then, over the years, it got more and more important. And then privacy hit. It's like, oh yeah, we really need one of those now. And now it's like with AI and it used to be the data people were, hey, let's protect the bottom line. And by the way, we need that. It's a cost center. Now it's you need CDOs and CDAIOs to drive the top line growth, and it's vital to it doesn't. And it used to matter whether you're in a service business. It was more important versus manufacturing per se, but now it's like every industry. It's all like overnight. It's vital to the success of the company.
Any lessons, like anything that you think, if you think about an aspiring leader that is, either a business person who's looking to build that role, or because essentially, like many CEOs are struggling with this on who to bring on. It's not the CIO anymore, right? Like it's a different function, more strategic, understands technology and business and data, and anything that you can share, like in terms of
I think it's two things I've learned working for so many different companies over my career and different phases of technology megatrend shifts, I guess I'll call it. One is each company operates at a different RPM depending on its season and depending on the type of business it is. Regions Bank, for example, was very different RPM than Expedia or Visa or and then Comcast was yet a different RPM, and so you've got to be able to adjust to the season and where the company is at, and sometimes it means you got to slow down a bit and fit into their culture and the speed at which they drive business, make those gears connect, sort of pull the clutch out but don't pop the clutch and get the engine going where the company's at, and then take the. That's a skill I think CDOs or CDIOs as they fit in are going to have to change. Like, okay, I got to upshift now. I got to help bring I got to upshift the company, and that takes finesse with the business. It takes some creative business case development, working alongside finance people. I've done that very well in certain cases in my career, and then I've struggled with that in certain places. But I think that's a big skill, a big muscle for CDOs, and especially now. I think the other thing is just leadership. We talked about empathy, and every company is going to be going through the next 3 to 5 years this challenge of and this pressure of A, what'd you do for me lately for the business to help drive the top line growth, but B, hey, how come you're so expensive, and why aren't you using AI in your own processes, and hey, you got a lot of people over there, we got to cut budget, AI is supposed to, and so there's this extra budget pressure and that's gonna be every year now, I think, with the growth of AI and then robotics coming on. And I think every CDO or CDAIO or whatever is going to be faced with that no matter what industry they're in. And so I think those are two things that are going to be facing with them. And then the third thing tied to that is, how do you keep employees motivated when there's this extra downward pressure that's going to just continue to be relentless? Those are it's not like how technical or how smart you are. Or
That's right.
it used to be like, oh, you're really good at machine learning and the guru on, the best modeling techniques. Those are table stakes, but it's these three things that are going to rule the day, I think, and helping companies with the transformation to AI and then also robotics.
Yeah, yeah. Sounds like a tough wreck. Um,
Yeah.
and so what's next, Andrew? Like after all these high RPM, serial high RPM gigs, what's next?
Well, so I'm advising a bunch of new startup companies, which is exciting and fun, and um, you know, uh,
And
once,
you're building your own, hacking away.
and then I'm building some of my own ideas, yeah, just on the side, which are kind of fun. I'm
You have
on
anything
board.
you want to demo or not yet?
No, not yet. We'll come back for that. Yeah, yeah,
Anytime, anytime. Um, awesome. Well, it's been a great chat again, Andrew. Thanks for your time. I really
yeah.
appreciate reconnecting. Any last thoughts that we have not covered? Anything you want to share with the community?
Yeah, I just think if anyone that's in the data field or AI and even engineers, I think it's a tough, a lot of stress, a lot of pressure. Like, where does this all lead? And I think getting out there and taking a risk and playing around with the new AI tools, and I also think blockchain, by the way, is going to come into vogue here very quickly because you'll have agents talking to agents in throughout all areas of different types of business, and the only way to do that with the authentications the right way and payments, agents paying payments, agents will be over blockchains, Solana and
Yeah.
Near and other types of blockchains. So I think learning those new technologies and trying to uh, you know, I'm on the board of trustees at a university, also Maryville, and we have new ways of kind of helping coach students and help with that learning curve quickly. Plug into programs and part-time. I did it at night at law school years ago, but always be learning at the same time, and that's going to help engineers kind of
Upskill.
think, upskill, yeah. And I think there's always going to be a place for engineers that figure out how to rise up and not, especially have the background of how the underlying puzzle pieces fit together, but then being able to figure out, okay, how can I look above and use the new tools and technologies to drive new business value? I think that's where these engineers and AI and data folks, will find new opportunities
Right.
and continue to stay relevant.
You're bullish on what this means, or
I am. I think I fast forward the tape. I am in terms of the productivity gains and the opportunities, and just human beings in general are going to,
figure it out.
be better off with the new services that will come from robotics, and whether it be robo taxis coming on with Elon Musk and some of the cool stuff that you see coming online, and with agentic AI. But I think I'm concerned about the social unrest and the social implications. Today we see a K-shaped economy evolving, and I don't think our politicians have that figured out. I don't think our leaders have that figured out across corporate America. And I think therein lies an opportunity also to help with I call it transform AI and robotics, but help the blue collar and the white collar worker with that transition. I think is going to be a huge opportunity. But I'm concerned that right now that's a challenge.
Yeah.
It's a gap.
Yeah, no doubt. Awesome. We are out of time. It was great chatting with you, Andrew. Thanks again.
Take care. Thank you.
Take care. Bye.